It is time for StreetWise with former chief of the New York City Sheriff's Department, former chief of the Seagate Police Department, retired New York City detective, Time Warner Public Access Media Award, Joe Franklin Super Excellence in Broadcasting Memory Lane Award, New York Veteran Police Association StreetWise Productions, host of StreetWise, Mr. Lou Telano.
Good evening and welcome back to StreetWise. You know, my guest tonight, I call him, folks, and you'll see it too, and I call him the quiet gentleman hero, because that's exactly what he is. And he was a former ICE agent, him and his late partner, who we recently met when this terrible incident occurred, when they were on the job on the infamous Highway 57 in Mexico, were ambushed by the cartel. But before we do that, and obviously I want to welcome to StreetWise, my pleasure to welcome to StreetWise, Victor Avila. Welcome to StreetWise, Vic.
Thank you, Lou. I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, again, how do I say that? If this incident never happened, you wouldn't be my guest, and that wouldn't be a problem, you know? So now, what do you think, before we go into the details, what happened with you, with Jamie Zapata, the other ICE agent, what are your thoughts on this recent Florida District Court judge who pretty much ordered all city law enforcement to cooperate with ICE, which what they weren't doing before, I should say. So now, if they violate her order, any elected official, they can be suspended from office. What's your thoughts on that? It just happened, I think, yesterday or the day before.
That's incredible, and I've been seeing and following these stories. The one in Chicago and what happened to the officer in Fairfax County, where it's incredible that our politicians, these elected officials, are trying to tell our police officers what laws and what to enforce and what not to enforce. And it's a very dangerous thing that they're doing, and only putting our law enforcement officers in greater danger than they already face at this time. It's incredible to me that they don't want to follow and work with ICE officials, ICE and HSI, because they get kind of sucked into this as well. Yeah. It's incredible how they're only doing their job and enforcing laws that Congress already passed, and it's crazy to me that they don't want to work with them. They'll want to work with FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshals, but as soon as they see the name ICE, they step away, and it's the whole problem with the whole sanctuary city issue that I totally disagree with.
Well, by the way, ICE, of course, is Immigration Customs Enforcement Agency. Now, what Victor Avila was talking about just a moment ago is about this police officer in Fairfax, Virginia, was fired because he did his job, like Victor was saying. He contacted federal authorities when he had an illegal alien. I think he got the job back, Victor. Yeah,
he was reinstated after a suspension, and but the only person that'd be suspended there is the chief, and I don't know if the chief is doing it on his own or following the orders of the mayor, of the elected official. It's either way, they're punishing the police officer for only doing and exercising his duty of that of a peace officer, and that is executing a warrant that he came across.
I know. In my time, prior to, working a beat in the city, I worked a beat in the jails, and then I also worked in the courts. If we would notify you guys, or the feds, at least at that time, when something would pop up where the person was wanted by any agency throughout the country, including federal, warrants, holds, and whatever, and somehow they didn't continue that practice. Like you mentioned also a moment ago, the politics. Folks, I want to talk about what happened to Victor Avila and his partner, Jaime Zapata. Now, Jaime, Victor just met Jaime the day before. I'm going to call it a tragedy. Talking about law enforcement doing their job. They were on assignment from the embassy, I think doing work for Homeland Security. He'll correct me or jump in if I err.
That's correct. That's correct, at the ICE office in Mexico City.
Right, and you were in an immigration, not an immigration, I'm sorry, an embassy car that should be visible, the license plates, and the car was obviously a embassy vehicle, and you two guys were ambushed. I know the story. Let's hear the audience listen to what happened that day. I'm going back to February the 15th, 2011. Yeah, in your words, Agent Victor Avila. As far as I'm concerned, you'll always be an agent.
Thank you, Lou, for that. I was assigned to the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City with the ICE office, and this is February 15th of 2011. I got the assignment on February 14th on Valentine's Day. After I had just arrived in the office from another assignment that had taken me out of town. I went to the office on February 14th, and trying to do that week was going to be my administrative week of doing all this paperwork. But about noon, one of my coworkers gave me a heads up and said, "Listen, they might be sending you to Monterey." And I'm not a very shy guy. I might come out across a little quiet, but I'm not shy.
Yeah.
And I said, how could they be? How can this be? I just got here. I have a lot of work to do. But anyway, regardless, after lunch in Mexico City around 2:00, we get back, and my supervisor gives me the official assignment saying, "Listen, I need you," and he referred to Jaime Zapata as a TD wire, meaning a temporary duty agent.
Yes.
Jaime Zapata was full-time out of the Laredo, Texas ICE office, but had been sent over on a special assignment to Mexico City to help on another case. And he said, "You and the TD wire are going to go and pick up some equipment from our ICE officers, agents that from the Monterey office. You're going to exchange some equipment and bring it back." Well, immediately I challenged the assignment. It was very dangerous to drive on that highway. And as a matter of fact, there was an alert by the U.S. ambassador 3 weeks before, has sent an alert to all of U.S. personnel prohibiting anyone driving on that highway, whether for personal reasons or business reasons. He didn't want anybody on there, and if you needed to go on there, you needed written permission from him. But my supervisors ignored that. I had my supervisor go to the deputy attaché and questioned it, and the deputy attaché came out and said, "I need that equipment here by business day tomorrow," meaning the 15th. And he said he wasn't aware, and I always quote this, he wasn't aware of any security issues in Mexico, which to this day I'm dumbfounded by that statement. But I tried. I talked to the counterparts in Monterey. They all knew that the Zetas cartel controlled that whole corridor. They were having a lot of firefights and with Mexican military and Mexican police. But my office ignored all that. There was no operational plan. There was no backup. It was just us two in my armored Suburban then. And, Lou, when you're ordered. At that point, I had no choice. And I met Jaime there that afternoon. We exchanged some phone numbers. And he was taken to my apartment the following morning at 6:30 in the morning so we could drive out. And we did. So the 15th, we head out early in the morning, and I'm driving. So people can know, the listeners, it's a big blue Suburban. It's armored. It looks different. It looks a little funky around the windows. It's very heavy. It weighs almost 6 tons. Oh. And it's well equipped, except some of the equipment was already faulty, and I could talk about that when I tell the story because it makes a big difference. GPS trackers and stuff like that were not working. The siren wasn't working. The PA system wasn't working because just the maintenance on the vehicles wasn't being kept up. But we head out. We're driving. We had been in contact with the other agents coming from the Monterey office. And if you can imagine this kind of almost straight line of Highway 57, 4-lane highway, going north from Mexico City up to the Monterey region. And they're driving south. We're driving north. We're trying to meet in the halfway point. We actually meet up. We end up driving a little bit more. So about 11:30 in the morning, we meet with them. We open the back of the Suburbans. They drive one Suburban exactly like mine. Theirs is golden color. Mine is dark blue. We loaded up with boxes, and there's a lot of boxes, big boxes, full of equipment, tracking devices. They needed this equipment for another money laundering case that was being investigated at our office. And so we had to lower the second row seats and the third row seats, and to allow for all the equipment to fit. So we exchanged the equipment. We were only there for about maybe 5 minutes. Now we're driving back. I'm still driving, and we're heading back south to Mexico City. Jaime, I have to say this, we hit it off completely. We had a beautiful conversation.
Great.
Jaime shared a lot of personal stuff about him, about his, he reminded me a lot about me.
Yeah.
A border agent, trying to do better in his career. I could tell he was a hardworking agent and was aspiring to maybe go be assigned overseas himself or to Mexico office. I told him he had to brush up on his Spanish. He wasn't very good at it.
Oh.
And but he told me about his fiancée. It was it's like I had known him for forever. He was a great fisherman, and he made some great barbecue.
Oh.
But he had seen a Subway restaurant that we had passed on the way to pick up the equipment, and he was like, "There's a Subway restaurant over here," and I said, "Yeah, there is. If you want, we could eat there." So he wanted to eat at the Subway.
Right.
And so on the way back, close to the town of San Luis Potosí, there's a big rest area with restrooms and the Subway, very clean, very familiar, by the way, with this road. I had driven on that road many times. And we stopped and ate, had a great 30-minute lunch, and then on the way to the car, I threw him the keys. I said, "Jaime, it's your time to to drive and get used to the armored vehicle." There had not been any training on how to drive an armored vehicle. Neither had I. I had never received any training. I just got there and learned just by trial by fire. And he got on there. I told use the open road to get used to the weight, the acceleration, and the braking. And I told him, take it about 70, 72 miles an hour, and we'll be okay. I was working on my BlackBerry back then, doing some human trafficking conferences, and had a lot of work to do. And so he drove. Well, within 10, 15 minutes of that drive, 2 SUVs passed us at a very high rate of speed. On our left side, we were on the far right lane. And Jaime is the one that told me, "Hey, listen, that second SUV that passed us there's a long gun, like a rifle, sticking up from the middle of the seat." And I look up, and sure enough, I see there's a rifle there. And they keep on driving. They're going super fast, like 90 plus mile an hour. And I tell them, just let them go, just let them drive. And they continued going, but within seconds, we were on them. They had reduced their speed dramatically. And now we were on them, and they started to try to block us in, one in the front and one in the side.
So there were 2 vehicles?
2 vehicles, 2 SUVs. Right. And I told Jaime, punch it. He tried to punch it and accelerate. Suburban can't go that fast because of its weight. But at this point, the one next to us, which is next to Jaime, they lower the windows and stick out assault rifles, AK-47s, and start ordering us in Spanish to pull over and stop.
Right.
The front vehicle, the front SUV, is stopping. So they basically did, Lou, is they conducted a rolling roadblock, which was out. We were trained to do ourselves.
Correct.
And they want to crash the vehicle, and your basic instinct, your human instinct, is to avoid the collision. And so it forces you to push the car to the right shoulder, which Jaime did. We ended up stopped completely, blocked in on the right.
Wow. About
8 to 10 armed men come out and halfway surround the front of the Suburban with long guns, and one of the shooters comes out and to Jaime's door and opens the door.
You guys were completely stopped then, Victor?
We were completely stopped. There was no checkpoint here. There was
you couldn't back up, and you couldn't. You guys were boxed in. Actually,
we were boxed in. Yeah. We couldn't jump to the back because of the back of the Suburban, because it was full of boxes.
Oh boy!
And so when Jaime placed the vehicle in park, the Suburban was programmed to unlock the 4 doors.
That's
well,
right.
When that guy came over, he opened the door, swung it wide open, and Jaime immediately grabbed it, shut the door, and we started hitting the lock buttons, and they were yanking at the door handles, and this whole time ordering us to open the door, get out, all in Spanish, by the way.
Right.
And when we did that, we inadvertently lowered my window on my side.
But where were you? You were in Mexico,
obviously. Front passenger seat.
You were in Mexico, obviously. So
we're in Mexico City on Highway 57. just outside of the state of San Luis Potosí, in the middle of Highway 57. Really, I had no idea at that point where I was exactly. And this window lowered about 2 inches, and when we were yelling, we had our hands up, and Jaime just I stayed there. I started yelling at them. I said, "Let me talk to you. We are not who you think we are. We're Americans. We work for the U.S. Embassy. We are U.S. diplomats."
Oh, you responded? So you were able to, you had time to respond to them?
Oh, yeah. I was yelling at the top of my lungs.
Right.
And I was telling them, we're Americans. We're U.S. diplomats. This is a diplomatic vehicle.
Were you armed?
Look at the plates.
Victor, I got to ask you, were you guys armed?
Yes, we were, Lou, but we had 2 handguns that were inside a backpack that were caught underneath the seats. So we never brandished a gun. We never took out a gun ever. They never saw a gun. And I probably wouldn't be able to tell you the story here in person if I would have, I think.
No, I can understand, but...
And definitely outgunned at that point. It didn't matter what guns we had.
Right.
But eventually they introduced the barrels of 2 guns, an AK-47 and a handgun right by my head on the window. And instinctively, I just kind of pushed back as much as I could against the car, and I raised the window, and it caught the barrel of the AK-47 and the handgun. And, they started wiggling them in and wiggling them up and down. This whole time is yelling, "Get out, get out, get out." And then without warning, they opened fire, and they opened fire inside the cabin. And I saw Jaime get hit on his right side, on his torso, and he yells out, "I'm hit." And I tell him, "Go, go, 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 go." And I still had my finger on that window button. And then somehow, I don't know, with my left hand, I grabbed the handgun. It was wiggling the handgun and burned my left hand finger. Eventually, they pulled them out, and it raised the rest of the window, and they just sprayed. Eventually, I think they found over 90 rounds that were shot at us.
Oh, boy.
And I look at Jaime, and he was already becoming unresponsive, and I put my hand on his knee to hit the gas, and I slammed the gear shift down, and we crashed the front SUV that's blocking us.
Right.
Trying to get the Suburban back on the highway, but it really just goes into the median. And then I try to get the steering wheel back to get the Suburban back on the highway. But if you look at the internet, you'll see the pictures of how it ended up. It was all shot up. It was flat tires and all that. You'll hear the argument that they were going to carjack us and they wanted the vehicle. That's absolutely not true. They destroyed that Suburban. But one interesting thing that happened is when we're in there, and Jaime, I was trying to attend to him, one of the SUVs looks like it's leaving, but it does a U-turn and comes back and parks right in front of the Suburban, and 2 guys get out with 2 AK-47s, 1 each, and they just spray the front. And they're looking at me, I'm looking at them, and they're just shooting through the window, trying to get the bullets to come through. And I kind of freeze for a second there. And I realized, I don't know if I'm getting hit or not. At this point, I had already been shot, but I didn't even know that I had been shot. And they turn around and leave. I'm yelling at Jaime. I get one of my phones, the Nextel radio phone back then. It didn't work. I pick up another phone that's a BlackBerry, and I call the embassy. And some people, your listeners, can go online and listen to the call. I called the post 1, the main number at the embassy. And, I yell out, "This is Victor Avila, we've been shot." Eventually, that call gets routed to the Regional Security Office, which is the RSO, the Diplomatic Security Special Agents there. My wife happened to be working there as a contractor when they were there. I was going to say that. Your
wife was listening, and she heard the whole transmission, right?
Yeah, so when the receptionist answered the phone there, she yelled out, "Victor Avila has been shot, he's on the phone." And my wife was literally 5 feet away. And she came out and said, "What did you just say?"
Yeah.
He says, "Victor Avila has been shot." And my wife went into distress immediately. So they had to take her away. And then the agents got on the line. One of my really good friends, agents, so before being a special agent with ICE, was a paramedic. And he's the one that told me, "You have to check yourself, Victor. Have you been shot?" And that's the first time I realized I'd been shot in my chest and my leg, the top of my leg. And he told me, "Take off your belt and cinch it as much as you could, like a tourniquet on the highest part of my leg," which I did.
Right.
I tried to control some of the Jaime's bleeding, but he was bleeding profusely from his leg.
Wow.
And then a lot of things happened, Lou, throughout there. We were there on that road for 40 minutes.
Any help? I mean, any local help, local assistance, I should say?
No, the first one was a federal police that passed by but didn't stop. And I called the federal police in Mexico City. My counterpart, a vetted unit, the head of our vetted unit, he was the head of that vetted unit, the federal police. I called him. He dispatched a helicopter, a Mexican federal police helicopter, who then got in touch with me through the phone. I was able to give him the coordinates off of my GPS.
Amazing.
And eventually, about 40 minutes later, the federal police, Mexican military, and the Mexican federal police helicopter landed right there on Highway 57 and took me and Jaime to the nearest hospital, which was in San Luis Potosí.
How long was that whole time you were waiting there, you and Jaime Zapata? You guys were bleeding for a long time.
40 minutes we were there without any help. And, it's, I always share this when we were going to the hospital, which is the hardest part for me, because that's when I thought I was even in more danger. I thought for sure these cartels do that. They come to these hospitals and finish people off.
Correct.
And I thought, that's it. They're going to find out that I didn't die, and they're going to come finish me off. So I was so afraid of going to that hospital. And the Mexican federal police on the phone kept on assuring me, listen, they're going to secure that hospital.
Did they?
And it took them a while.
Did they?
Yes.
Did they secure the hospital? The federal police?
They did. After I would say about maybe close to an hour, the people that from Mexico City and people that I trusted that they sent directly from there, because you can imagine the corruption, Lou, in Mexico. At that point, I didn't trust anyone. Not even the
police?
Hospital staff, not even the doctors. I didn't give them my information.
Yeah.
They thought we were Mexican federal police officers.
Oh.
And I didn't. Once they secured everything, they said, "You're secure, Victor. We're here on special orders from Mexico City."
Right.
Then I told the hospital and the doctors who I was, that I was an American.
Right.
And it gives me chills, because I felt like such a foreigner in Mexico. I'm a Mexican American, and I felt like a person that did not belong there at all.
Yep. Now, you were born in Mexico, right?
No, I was born in the United States.
Oh, okay. Who was born?
My parents were born in Mexico, and they're naturalized
your
U.S.
parents
citizens.
came from Mexico. Am I correct?
Who is that?
Your parents, your mother.
Yes, my mom and my dad were born there. Yeah.
That's what I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad naturalized back in 1980. My mom in 1990.
Right.
And I was born in El Paso, Texas, and so I talk a lot about immigration and all that stuff, that my parents came in and did it the right way and the long way. The
right way.
Yeah, it was a very surreal time to have been in Mexico at that time, because I love the country of Mexico. It was, it's my heritage and all that. But I at that time, I felt like such a foreigner.
It's just amazing. That's because of the bad guys and the gangsters also that have a lot to do affecting the whole country of Mexico. But now, you were shot 3 times, Victor?
Yes. I was shot in the chest, and I was shot in the top of my leg and thigh. And when we got to the hospital, they found a third one by my shin, on my lower leg. And they did really good care. They took really good care of me.
Oh, great.
And after being there about a few hours, one of the doctors did come to me and said, your partner has passed.
Oh.
And I told him, please treat him with dignity and respect. Mm-hmm. And eventually the first Americans showed up about 4 hours later. And eventually everybody showed up, Americans and everyone there. Right. As you can imagine, they had an international incident in their hands. And they got me out of there. They got me out of there with a DEA plane like at 3 a.m, flew me to Houston, to a trauma center there. And we got some treatment. My family then, my wife and kids, had to be extracted in a very unique fashion, because my home address, apartment, was on that GPS.
Yeah.
And so they were listening to stuff that possibly was compromised. So then all of a sudden, my wife and kids have to go.
Yes.
And we left our place. I always say this. I left that morning, and I never went back. All of a sudden, I ended up in Texas, and then they didn't want me anywhere near the border, and they sent me to Washington, D.C. to recover. But all my stuff is still over there. I showed up with scrubs that the doctor in Houston gave me. And that's a whole other story. The nightmare really began there, Lou, with the treatment of my agency, of me and my family. It was a complete and utter failure on their part.
Why was it a failure? By the way, folks, this happened during the Obama, and I'm going to include Biden because he's running in the Democratic primary for the presidency. This happened on the Obama-Biden administration. And we also had Benghazi during that time that they were running the country as well. So do you feel that do you see a connection with that, with you being treated the way you were not treated, I should say?
Absolutely, and it has to do with the weapons and this tie and to Fast and Furious, the weapon operation Fast and Furious from Phoenix, Arizona, and this is the operation, the biggest failure that our government has ever seen. Someone there thought it was going to be a good idea to let weapons walk. In other words, let them go into Mexico untraced, and to somehow end up getting, I guess, the bigger fish. Well, it ended up getting a lot of people killed in Mexico, and then the first agent that was killed was Border Patrol agent Brian Terry. 2 months before our attack.
With the weapons with the Fast and Furious weapons, Mexico,
correct. If you fast forward 2 months later, there was another operation in Dallas and in Texas that was the same model, and that's what they wanted to do in Phoenix, is they wanted to make this model across the whole country. And they were starting to do that, and our operation was exactly the same thing. They let the weapons walk from Texas into Mexico, and 2 of those weapons recovered. I have the ballistics report. This is not a theory. This is a fact.
Right.
Were used in our attack. The American weapons that were purchased by these traffickers under the watch of ATF.
And this, by the way, folks, this has come down to Eric Holder, who was the United States Attorney General at the time. And what Victor Avila is talking about is letting the guns walk and gun walking. That was sort of some genius thought that would be a great tactic to see. But you don't even have to be in law enforcement to know that's the most stupidest thing that you could possibly think or even attempt to do. So let's let the people hear, how did Fast and Furious, which actually probably happened a year before your incident, am I correct on that, Victor?
Yes, it had already been in effect, and there's gun shop owners in Nevada and other places and Arizona that were vastly affected by this. ATF had them told these gun shop owners, you know what? They're going to come here and buy, so many rifles from you. It's okay. We got it. It's a federal investigation. And even the gun shop owners are saying, wait a minute, this smells kind of fishy. This is not right. Wow. But it's the federal government telling you it's okay. So they said, okay, well, I guess we'll allow it to happen. So, tons and tons of hundreds and hundreds of weapons start being sold to what we call a straw purchaser. A straw purchaser is a person that has a clean record that buys the weapons and then gives them to the bad guy, basically.
Yeah.
And then these thousands of weapons start going south, and they start turning up in all these crime scenes. As a matter of fact, Lou, just last week, one gun showed up in a crime scene in the state of Chihuahua. From a Fast and Furious gun that was sold in Phoenix, Arizona.
2010.
So they're still turning up.
2010, I think, right?
That's right, 2010, and it's almost 10 years later.
Recovering weapons from Eric Holder, as the United States Attorney General, who thought this was a great thought, with the support of President Barack Hussein Obama, folks. Just so it doesn't end there. So. What was their plan? What did they think was going to happen when they sent the guns there? Who were going to track down the cartel? Is that what they were looking forward? That was their plan or idea or thought?
Yes, Lou, and it's ridiculous. As a person that worked in Mexico, the first thing I would have done is contact the host government, the government of Mexico, and say, listen, you know what? If in fact this could be pulled off, which I think would be very difficult, but let's give it a shot. Let's say, okay, you know what? We're going to have these weapons. They're going to come from Texas or Arizona. We're going to have the Mexican government on standby, ready to take these guns down when they get to Mexico to a warehouse, and they're going to take everybody down. Okay, I could possibly see that happening, but that never happened here. The Mexican government was never involved. These guns were smuggled back into Mexico.
Amazing.
There was no enforcement on that side of it, and these weapons are still there. As a matter of fact, one turned up in the shooting in France last year. They're all over the place, and we're talking about not just these automatic weapons and AK-47s, but 50 caliber weapons, handguns, and grenade launchers, and all this other stuff that continues to be smuggled down there.
Amazing.
And it just makes you think what the ultimate reason. You asked why, and I can't think of other reason than maybe just gun control by the Obama administration.
By the Obama administration. Folks, my guest is the former ICE agent Victor Avila, who lost his newly met his partner a day before when him and his partner were ambushed on the infamous Highway 57 going through Mexico, which they knew was a hot spot. Tragically, we lost Jaime Zapata. Victor, it's like saying you guys were shot with your own guns, pretty much.
Yeah, almost. They're guns that came from the United States to Mexico, correct?
Yeah, it's just amazing. But there is a upside if it's a fact, if it's factual. You would know more than anyone. Supposedly, allegedly, the cartel, 2 top guys, maybe 3, were caught, and the weapons were recovered, the weapons that connected to you and your late partner. I have a couple of names here. You could, whatever. I got Jose Emmanuel Garcia, known as Zafado, 35 years old. I got Jesus Ivan Quinzado Pina, known as Loco, and we all know what Loco means, folks. And were these guys were they connected to your?
These are they're members of Los Zetas cartel, which is one of the most brutal and violent cartels, and there's a faction of them right now.
Wow.
Cartel del Noreste. It's a faction that has split from them right now, and they're just controlling that whole northern region of the Nuevo Laredo side of Mexico. And they're beheading people. They're controlling. They're terrorizing. They're basically, Lou, they're terrorist organizations, which is something that I'm pushing for them to be designated as foreign terrorist organizations, just like ISIS, just like Al Qaeda.
Yes.
Because they are that brutal. They're terrorizing about 80% of the country of Mexico. They besides them wanting the profits of the money, we know that they have terrorized the communities. They've killed 13 reporters, journalists in Mexico. They continue to kill politicians and obviously police officers as well. And and of course citizens. I think at this in the last 10 years they've killed over 200,000 people, which is unheard of. When I was in Juarez in 2008, in Ciudad Juarez, they were killing 350 people a month in that city alone.
Amazing.
And so it's just the violence is just rampant, and of course the corruption and all that doesn't help.
No, and they're known for being involved in massacres. I know it's pretty. And you and the late Jaime Zapata got caught in the middle of that. That's why I mentioned earlier. You guys got pretty much caught up in what happened during the Obama administration. Benghazi, folks. Don't forget Benghazi. They were, I'll tell you, they were thrown to the wolves pretty much like Victor Avila and his partner. Oh my God, it's emotional for me, who's seen a lot of stuff. It's just our politicians, folks, do not give a damn. They really don't give a damn, and you can see that now. Your thoughts on now? If anybody could give us a great thought and answer, what's your thoughts on this wall that Donald Trump wants to put up on the border
The wall. I love talking about the wall.
Right.
Listen, I worked down there, and most of my career in El Paso, Texas, right where there's a big wall.
Yeah.
And the walls work, and it doesn't affect. You'll hear this rhetoric from the Democrats and the left saying that it'll affect our commerce with Mexico. It'll affect our relationship. You know what? That wall in El Paso has been up since 2006. And it never affected the relationship then. It doesn't affect it now. But I'll tell you what it does affect. It affects crime. Yeah. Crime lowered drastically, especially petty crime and theft and that type of crime of illegal aliens jumping the wall. It eliminated illegal aliens getting killed on the highway, jumping that wall and crossing the highway. And most effectively, I think what it'll do, Lou, is there's parts like, for example, in far east El Paso County, Hudspeth County, that's the county over, that the border is wide open. I investigated cases where SUVs and vans full of drugs were just driven over the river. When you're down there, some of these parts of the river has very little water, and just drive them all over. And so a wall would definitely be a drastic reduction in that type of smuggling of humans, the human trafficking, the drug trafficking, all that illicit stuff that happens in the border. It would definitely help our Border Patrol agents. Now, it's not going to solve everything, we know that. But let me tell you, that wall is a great tool for our Border Patrol agents. Sometimes you have 5 agents patrolling 75 miles, 150 miles stretch of border, which is, you just can't do it. And so this wall would give them the ample time to respond to these sensors, to respond to these alerts that they have, and the wall would really slow these people down, and that way have our focus of our agents returning back to patrolling the border. As you know, Lou, right now they're basically taking care of these migrants that are coming over and becoming these humanitarian services. They're babysitters. They're taking care of them, taking them to hospitals, they're doing all this other stuff except
doing social work
our border.
Yeah, as opposed to law enforcement, which they're you know, and people don't see that. So we got this drug trafficking, human trafficking, gun trafficking, and I don't know. I'm drawing a little blank on something here. Our new New York State Attorney General of the state of New York, I've never seen this in all my years, suing ICE. You know that, right? She's suing ICE.
I heard about that.
Yes, for enforcing warrants and picking up illegal aliens wherever they pick them up at their jobs, at the locale. In the courts. They were going into the courts. And I've done that. If I knew a guy that was wanted on something, I knew he was going to go to court on another case. Hey, we would go to court and lock him up in court. That's not uncommon.
Not uncommon. I did it myself as well.
Absolutely.
It's the hatred for our president, and it's really what it comes down to. They hate our president more than they love our country, and it's totally unacceptable. ICE officers and agents, HSI agents, are being vilified for doing their job. Some of these people are out there publishing their home address and where they go to church, and affecting their families and putting them at real risk. And it's something that's completely unacceptable. They're out there. They took an oath to uphold the laws as well. And these are the laws that were passed by the same Congress that are trying to vilify them. So I don't understand them. It's I know why they're doing it, but it really is a very dangerous path that they're taking.
You said it's Donald Trump. Yeah, they sacrificed this country for their hatred of Donald Trump. There's no two ways about it. I've never seen law enforcement sue law enforcement like our New York State Attorney General. It's just mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling. It's just, and now with this phony, fake, as Donald Trump would say, orchestrated impeachment hearings or stuff, it's just... my thoughts, and I've said it so many times, is they have to get him out of the way, because he knows that they know that they are on his indictment list if he gets reelected. And
I could say something to that, Lou, really quickly. Is the whole attention that the Democrats are putting towards this impeachment process the way I see it is it's taking away the time for them to do the actual legislation that they're there to do.
You're right.
People have been waiting for immigration reform for now going on, I don't know, 12 years.
Yeah.
Obama promised them immigration reform and did nothing other than deport 3 million of them. But you didn't hear about that in the media. They deported 3 million and no one said anything. Donald Trump deports 5 people and they go berserk. But it's the legislation. Nothing is getting done. I want to see that moving in Washington to come to an agreement about immigration reform. I'm the first one to tell you. I'm open to discussions. I don't want to deport everybody just like that.
Correct.
My first concern are these criminal aliens and these criminal gang members. These guys that are, you heard about Montgomery County.
Yep.
They're sexually assaulting 9 different little girls in a month. How many more are out there? They're the DUIs and killing our Americans. Why aren't we taking care of our U.S. citizens first?
Exactly. Well, I say that, we got women and children right here in California and New York too. They're just sleeping in the streets in our country. And
That's right.
American citizens, women and children, sleeping in the streets of our country, and all these politicians that we're talking about are concerned about the wall, and when there's nothing is being done. We are very fortunate that we have Donald Trump as our president, because whatever's being done is because of him. We have achieved so much in the short time that Donald Trump has been in office. But it's very sad because no one's talking about it except people like you and I, and supporters of what Donald Trump has achieved. But he's achieved so much, and their focus, it's their whole, everything, every day, it's impeachment. There's so many different things, even prison reform is, immigration, there's all these different things that are just that way we're ignoring, just so we can focus on getting rid of the president. But we all know why they have to get him out of the way, because they know he's going to lock them up. It's just they know they can't buy him off, and that's our problem now. But you had some issues yourself. Oh, by the way, you and the Zapata family are suing. Correct? You're suing the government?
Yeah, we did do that, and I don't know if some of that retaliation was because of that, but and I'll mention something to you that I've never mentioned to anybody, and I got this clearance to be able to mention it on your show today.
Oh, great!
But I've approached the Office of Special Counsel a while back, and they submitted an investigation, and they've been really good. And they've gotten some response from ICE and Department of Homeland Security, and they have basically substantiated and agreed with 3 of my allegations.
Wow. Which
is kind of weird to have them agree on that. But that report, I'll let you know, Lou, when it comes out. Once it's the redactions and all that is done, I want to come back and let you know about it.
That'd be great.
But they've kind of discovered some other things about that. But yes, we filed this lawsuit. It went nowhere.
Yeah,
it's basically been dismissed, and it's just so hard to find the. All we want is to find answers.
Yes.
The Terry family and all these other individuals that I stand with, the gun shop owners in Arizona and Nevada. All we want is our documents to look at them. There's President Obama put an executive privilege order out there, not allowing anybody to see these documents, and that's where all the answers are at. And I would love to talk to President Trump to lift that order, lift that executive privilege order, and give us access to all these documents, not just in the Fast and Furious case, my case.
Correct.
Give us access to our documents. I filed a FOIA request. We've all have. They've either been denied or they send us a bunch of redacted black sheets of paper. And it's just been a nightmare for our families to try to get access to that, and because it's nothing less than the cover-up, and we know why. We know why, because it will expose the truth.
That's right. So you mean you couldn't even get it on the basic freedom of information?
Nothing, denied.
Denied.
Believe it or not, Judicial Watch has been helping me.
Oh, I know.
And they're very good, and they're experts at that. And they see the stonewalling. They can't believe it. Like, oh my goodness, Victor, these documents exist. I requested documents from the State Department. Like, okay, well, let's get the ones from the embassy. I made the call to the embassy, right? There's got to be records of the U.S. State Department. The alert that I'm telling you about, I have a copy of the alert, Lou, and I could show you a copy, but that doesn't mean anything to me. I want the official records.
Yeah.
And they're there, but yet they come back and say we have nothing, or they use the privilege of it's just law enforcement sensitive, or it's an ongoing, the quote unquote ongoing investigation, which has been almost 10 years. And it's just been very frustrating. I'm in contact with the Terry family. I'm in contact with the gun shop owners, and we're trying really hard to get our information that we've been requesting for so many years.
How are you getting? Obviously, everything costs money. How are you able to finance what you guys are trying to do?
That's a great question. No one has ever asked me that. I went into debt and almost went into bankruptcy because of what happened to me. I think my wife and I at one point tallied it up for the court, and it was almost close to $300,000. And I haven't even told you the other side of the story, what happened to me. And they gave me a 3R letter: either resign, you relocate, or retire. I ended up taking a medical retirement in 2015. Because my agency didn't want me back at that point. I didn't want to go back in that type of work environment. It was just a terrible, terrible treatment, and financially it's been difficult that way. But there's been a lot of help out there. Believe it or not, there's all these agencies like Gallup on Saturday there in New York, the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, FLIOA. They've been great. Believe it or not, there's been all these other agencies outside of ICE and outside of the Department of Homeland Security that have helped me and my family that we're very grateful for, but nothing from my own agency. They've never stepped up.
Victor, do you have? Is there a way to contribute? Is there any? I don't know if you have a corporation or a GoFundMe type of system, so people can get involved financially. So to try.
No, Lou, we don't have that set up.
I wish you would.
But thank you for that thought. But it's been we're in a better place now. But it's tough. It's just something that we figured we're never going to get back.
Right.
I'll give you an example. When I told you I showed up in scrubs, I had nothing. You left your home this morning. Don't ever go back. What do you need tonight, right? And so I needed to attend Jaime Zapata's funeral. Oh. And amazing. To this day, my suit that I bought hasn't been reimbursed. My wife's dress has not been reimbursed. I had to move to Virginia with my kids, and we showed up to an apartment, and there we were. And my kids needed to go to school. We needed to buy them. It was snowing in February of 2015, and it was in 72 degrees in Mexico. So we needed coats. And you can imagine. Just think of your everyday life of what you need when you're taken from your home and never go back. And so that accumulates. We eventually ended up being stationed in Madrid, Spain, and we thought that's going to be a good thing for 3 years. And then about 19 months later, they kicked us out and said, you got to go. And I still don't know the reason this day. So don't ask me. I don't know the reason. I got kicked out. I say they pick a city to go back to in the States. And so it's been very, very rough. I'm glad of the separation, and don't get me wrong, I love ICE. I love the Department of Homeland Security as far as what I represent for them, and I support them 100%. It's just what happened to me and the administration, and of course it was under President Obama. Because I'll tell you this right now, Lou, if it would have happened under President Trump, this would have been a completely different story.
Absolutely, yeah. We all know that. It's just again. Mind-boggling. So you were a victim. Your family wound up being a victim as well.
Oh my goodness! My kids are so resilient for for putting up with it. My wife, oh my goodness, we just had our 21st wedding anniversary there in New York when we were there last week.
Oh,
and
congratulations.
it was my wife. I give her all the credit. She had a lot of reasons to leave before and even more after. But I thank her every day because
You're fortunate.
Yeah, very fortunate to have her.
Yeah, great partner to have, especially in times like what you went through. You know,
Absolutely.
And what you're still going through. What's your vision up ahead now? What do you foresee in regard to what happened to you in Jaime Zapata?
Well, I know that as a survivor, I have a duty. God didn't take me that day. He kept me here for a reason. I'm trying to put out the word and share the story. I do presentations, Lou.
Yes.
If anybody other has an organization,
how can they reach you? How can they reach you?
I have a powerful presentation about that.
How can
I do some public speaking. I talk about the border security.
Right.
I started doing some hits on, people have seen me probably on the news. And so I'm trying to write a book. I've had very little luck with that. I have a book proposal. I'm looking for a publisher. I think the story needs to
Send me that. You have to send me that, of course.
I will.
Proposal. And I can see the book called, I think, Agent Shot. Is that what the book came?
Agent Under Fire.
Agent Under Fire, or even Highway 57.
Right.
Speaking of Highway 57, they named a portion of it or a part of it in regard to Jaime Zapata.
In his hometown in Brownsville,
hometown.
they named a road after him.
Okay. Was that road connected to Highway 57?
No. It was down a little further south, but because he was down from the South Texas,
right?
And they've done some very good things down there for him. And
great!
Every year they have a nice fishing tournament for his foundation in September down in South Padre Island. But I'm in contact with the family. I have a good relationship with them. I try to help them since I'm the one that's able to be vocal about it, and hopefully one day we could get the answers that all of us have been trying to get and search for a long, long time.
Well, I believe what you said a moment ago. There's a reason why you survived. It's exactly what you're doing now. Because if you didn't survive, there's a lot of things we wouldn't know about, folks. You know that, folks, your listeners. We would just, that has to come out. And how can I say? Barack Obama put holds on so many different things. His own, it's not clear about his marriage. Forget about the birth certificate. That that goes 50-50. Personally, I don't believe he was. I believe he was born in another country. That's my thought, just from my experience and people that I talked to in Hawaii. Quickly, just one of the things, I have relatives on my late wife's side who are from Hawaii, and when the birth issue came up. They were saying, "What are you, jerks in America? We right here in Hawaii, we know he wasn't born here. You're telling us that he was born here, and we know he wasn't born here." I mean, it's just amazing. I said this on the air when they were calling me. I played a little message of my in-laws, I should say, that are in Hawaii, saying how everyone knows that in Hawaii, everyone, the people that are into what's going on, know he wasn't born there, but we know he was born there, whatever, and that's continuing with Barack Obama, how he left us. So what are you doing now? I mean, aside from doing
that, Lou. I'm trying to get into to be able to share my, other than what I went through. I do have this expertise about talking about the cartels and border security and immigration, and I love to share that. And so I speak about that. People can look me up to hopefully get me to one of their functions to speak. I also can talk about the experience. I have a powerful presentation of that. I'm trying to get the book out there, hopefully and get on some of these news programs. And I thank you, Lou, for having me, because it's venues like yours that allow new listeners to find out who we are, and a lot of people don't even know that it happened.
No,
and I think it's important that they find out what happened, and what really happened, and that I'm still here.
Okay, now I'm gonna try, if I could, to try to get you to do a lecture at the New York City Police Academy if I can. I will try to do that. Be good for the new police officers coming in on the job, as they say. Now, how can people reach you in case they would like you to do a lecture, or maybe somebody interested in watching you? You're going to be on YouTube in a little while. Somebody may be watching. How can they reach you?
The best way is through my Twitter account is at Vic Survivor 11 Vic Survivor 11. They follow me there, and they could message me there. I'm happy to do it. And so I also talk a lot about wellness, Lou.
Okay.
I went through the PTSD, the depression, and all that stuff, and that's so important with what's going on with our officers right now. The suicide rate, and as you know, and so I like to share that portion because I think that's very, very important. What I went through with my family, I wasn't a very good person to be around that. After that, I struggled not just physically to recover, but then the emotionally and the mental health about it was very, very difficult. Wow. I still go through counseling, and I'm not ashamed of that. It's just something that happened to me. Yeah. I'm never gonna forget it, but I've learned to live with it and moved on. But I like to share that story because there's a lot of officers and agents that go through these traumatic events, and we don't want to see them take their lives.
No, we had 11 in New York City this year. This year,
That's right.
1 year.
That's right.
11 in New York City. They didn't count the 12th because he just retired, was a sergeant. So I can't believe we're out of time. Victor Avila,
yes,
former ICE agent. Keep in touch. I will keep in touch with you. And again, folks, at Vic Survivor 11, correct? Victor Avila?
That's correct. That's correct, Lou.
Okay, folks, this show has been dedicated to the late Jaime Zapata, and of course, we're paying tribute and thank Victor Avila for coming on the show and speaking out, which we have to hear. Thank you for being a guest on StreetWise, Victor Avila.
Thank you, Lou, for having me. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. All right, folks, wasn't that, we're off the air now, right? I think we are. Oh, we're still on? We're still on the air. Look at that, folks. Okay, I don't know if Victor's still on, but I just got it before. Folks, don't forget, it's Yom Kippur. I think it starts tonight, Monday, if not tomorrow. Happy Yom Kippur to my Jewish listeners and connected family and whatever. Again, we're out of time now. We should be, right? Yeah, folks, listen. This is Lou Telano. Happy Yom Kippur. And thanks for listening to StreetWise, and I'll catch you later.